Welcome to this presentation. We're going to be discussing geography, and this presentation is really going to be short and sweet and to the point. I want you to really begin to understand the way in which these different elements are beginning to fit together in this broader puzzle. So I hope as the weeks are progressing, you're sort of seeing how these different pieces are fitting together. This week we'll be dealing with geography. Our agenda will begin with the question, as per usual. We'll look at what is geography, the different kinds of geography. Many of you have seen an atlas. An atlas is one way of looking at geography. We're going to be taking a different route. How does it operate in the classroom? How can you use it to build teaching and learning in your classroom in the future? All right, let's begin with the question. And the question I have this week is, does where I come from determine who I am? Does where I come from determine who I am? In South Africa, we have a philosophy. It's known as Ubuntu Ngumuntu Ngabantu. I'll say that one more time. Ubuntu Ngumuntu Ngabantu, which means I am because you are. So I cannot be human without you, without another person. Other people make me human and I make them human, right? In the same way, does where I come from determine who I am? So because you're from the United States, or because you may be from other places in the world, or because you're from the United States but from different regions of the United States, have those contributed to who you are? Have those sediments of those different places influenced and shaped the way you think about the world and the way you think about things? Are you aware of those things? Well, that's what we're going to be unpacking in this lecture. What is geography? As I said, the one way to look at it is the physical geography, the study of the physical environment. When you think about the United States, for example, you think about the Grand Canyon, you think about perhaps the Niagara Falls, you think about the States. When you think about Mount Everest, the highest mountain in the world, or Kilimanjaro, the second highest mountain in the world, located in Kenya, on East Africa. These are terms where we're talking about the physical geography of a place. The name of the country that I come from is called South Africa. It's a geographical location as well as the name of a place. Okay? So that's one way to look at geography. But there is another way to look at geography, and that's the way we're going to look at it in this presentation, and that is human geography. We're going to be looking at geography in terms of its impact on the way in which people use their economic and social and cultural systems, right? So the way in which geography really influences things like economic activity. I'll give you an example. One of the greatest studies to determine why there's so much political and war, for example, political strife and war in Afghanistan, is the geographic layout of the area. All right? There's sparse amounts of water, and it's very rocky. There's a lot of places to hide. Those contribute to the instability that Afghanistan experiences on a daily basis. Right? In certain areas of Afghanistan, it's not totally at war. Therefore, that shows you that geography is not just about the physical space, but about how human beings interact with the physical space. All right. Now, how does it operate for you in your classroom? Remember this framework. We talked about language, institutions, symbols, laws and policies. I'm going to unpack a little bit in the way I understand how geography can influence. Now, for example, we have language, and when we think about things like accents, I was having a discussion with a colleague earlier who spoke about a New York accent. Have I been practicing my New York accent? It means that I'm speaking perhaps the same language, but I'm saying it in a different way. We talk about dialects, for example. We talk about dialects. It's the same language, the broad language. For example, it could be English. Okay? It could be Xhosa, for example. But within these languages, we have accents. We also have dialects. We have terms in the United States such as real quick. The first time I heard real quick, I was wondering whether the person was coming back sooner than I expected or not, so I gave them a call, and it turns out real quick is just something you say, right? In South Africa, our equivalent to real quick is now. We use the word now. Or we start off every sentence with yes, no. So if someone asks me, what would you like for dinner? I would say, yes, no, can I please have some pizza? Right? So these are the ways in which we use language. Now, this is not necessarily an accent. Just please forgive this arrow over here. This is a form of dialect. An accent, many people will ask me, where are you from? I'm speaking English with them, but they can hear that I'm from somewhere else. So my accent is something that they pick up on. Okay? Now, accents are important for you as a teacher. I'm going back to how they operate. Accents and language is important because different students in your classroom may all speak English, but their accents may influence the way they understand the meaning. Let's go on to institutions. I want you to think about schools and how they operate within communities, how those communities operate within states, and how those states operate within the countries, and how those countries operate within the world. Schools are really what's called a microcosm. They really reflect the communities and the worlds around them, okay? So schools are impacted by schools are institutions themselves, but they're also impacted by things like immigration, which we'll talk about a little bit more in policy, which is why I'm putting it over here, right? So you will have students coming to you from all over the world with different perspectives and different understandings of the world, okay? Institutions such as police, for example. These are institutions that regulate geographic movement of people. Now, schools also have things like teachers, right? Administrations. You go to the administration building. I'm just going to use the word admin. These are institutions that regulate the movement of people, the movement of things. When you go on a school trip, you're going to a different geographic space. And these institutions regulate how that happens. All right, this will make more sense as we progress. Symbols, I want you to think about flags. Right, this is the South African flag right over there. We have the United States flag too. And I'll just draw the United States flag. We create symbols. We create symbols of places, right? And these symbols are significant because they pinpoint us in a specific place in the world, wherever else we go, right? So symbols are really important. And symbols fit into language, they fit into institutions, and they fit into laws and policies. Perhaps the most important law and policy for you when it comes to language, when it comes to laws and policies, is ESL, English as a second language. We also have immersion policies, okay? And we also have immigration policies. Many of the children, especially in Texas, will not be from Texas, or will be first-generation students who have come into Texas, all right? Now, geography really plays a huge role in how you operate with those students. Not all your students are going to come from your local town. Remember, we have different kinds of places. You'll read in Golnik and Chin, where you read about rural communities. You read about urban communities. And you read about suburban communities. Many of you may identify with some of these communities. The smallest town in Texas has a population of 19 people. That may sound like a town, but that sounds like a family reunion to me. Now, why is this important to you? Why should you care? What do you see in this picture? This picture right here. What do you see in this picture? What is the first thing you see? I want you to write that down. All right, now I want you to look at the second picture, and I want you to write down what you see. What do you see? Okay, now, some of you might see an old woman, right? There's her eyes, there's her mouth, there's her nose, and she has a shawl. She has a shawl. There's her chin. Okay, some of you may see an old woman. Others might see a young woman in this picture. She's actually looking away. If you notice here, here's her eyelashes, here's her little nose, here's her chin, here's her ears, and this is her hairline. And this is a necklace that she's wearing. And she's actually wearing a shawl. So there's two pictures in here. Now, if you look at this picture, if you look at picture number 2, you may see a man who's looking into the distance. But you may also see a man who's looking directly at you. Okay? So the first interpretation, and you may even see a third thing that I may not even see, right? But, for example, this is the person looking in this direction, but there's also this person looking at you, if you look at this picture very carefully. Now, in each example that I've tried to draw for you, I've tried to show you how who you are. None of you are wrong. Whichever perception you brought to the table is totally correct. So what that means is that diversity adds richness to any experience. The first time I saw this, I saw an old lady and I couldn't see the young lady. And I was convinced eventually that there were two realities in this picture. There are multiple ways in which to see the world. And really, geographic difference contributes to that reality. What are the takeaways? Where we come from determines much about who we are. We are comprised of sediments. This is a new word for the week. Sediments. From each experience. Every day that we live drops in sediments into us, which eventually form who we are. Geography operates in your classroom. Very important to understand. All the things that we've spoken about, this week we're speaking about geography, operates in your classroom. Diversity can add richness to the classroom if done right. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you next week.